Hi and welcome back to Canada Top to Bottom. So today we're going to be talking about a more unusual route to Canadian residency which does not require a job offer or proving your credentials or language skills. We're talking about how a Canadian resident or Canadian citizen can sponsor one of their close family members to come to Canada and become a permanent resident.
To begin with, it's important to point out right from the start that the person sponsoring the relative must be living in Canada and must be either a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. Small print here is that in some rare cases, a Canadian citizen can apply to sponsor a relative even if they are not currently living in Canada, provided that they can show solid proof and convince an immigration officer that they will live in Canada once the sponsored person becomes a resident. But in general, the person who is sponsoring must be living in Canada. Temporary residents, such as those on a work, study or visitor permit, are not eligible to sponsor any relatives. The next very important consideration is the type of relative that you can sponsor. And this is important because it doesn't include all relatives. In fact, it is very few.
The first relative you can sponsor is your spouse or common law partner, or in some cases, your conjugal partner. For clarity, the definition of a spouse is someone who is over the age of 18 and is legally married to you. A common law partner is someone who is not legally married to you, at least 18 years old, and has been living with you for at least 12 consecutive months without any long periods apart. A conjugal partner is someone who is not legally married to you or in a common law relationship with you, is at least 18 years old, lives outside Canada and has been in a relationship with you for at least 1 year but can't live with you in their country of residence or marry you because of significant legal and immigration reasons. For both the common law and conjugal relationships, you will need to provide compelling proof of the genuineness of the relationship.
Sponsorship of a spouse or partner can be done either through the family class, if you are in Canada and your spouse or partner is overseas, or the in Canada class if your partner is with you in Canada. Sponsorship through the in Canada class means you can apply for an open work permit for your partner. In most cases, there isn't an income requirement to sponsor your spouse, partner, or dependent child, which isn't the case if you are sponsoring other relatives.
The next relative you can sponsor is your dependent child. To qualify as a dependent child, they must be under 22 years old and be single, meaning they are neither married nor in a relationship. Children aged 22 or older will qualify as a dependent if they are unable to financially support themselves because of a mental or physical condition, and they have depended on their parents for financial support since before the age of 22.
The next group of relatives you can sponsor is your parents and grandparents. These parents and grandparents can be related to you by blood or adoption, so it cannot be a step parent, unless you are sponsoring a blood parent and their partner, i.e. your step parent. The application can include your brothers or sisters, but only if they qualify as dependent children of your parents. An important point to be aware of here is that to sponsor parents or grandparents, the sponsor must meet the income requirements for all the people that they want to sponsor and all their dependents. This means that you need to prove you have enough money to support yourself and your family and every family member that you are sponsoring to come to Canada.
The amount you need to prove depends on the size of your family. So if you as a sponsor have, for example, a wife and 2 children, and you wish to sponsor both your parents and your brother who qualifies as a dependent child, you will need to show you meet the income requirements for 7 people, which is currently just under $70,000 a year. There is a link in the description box below showing the amount required for each family size. To prove this income, you need to show your last 3 years of tax returns and must sign an undertaking promising to provide financial support for these people for a specified period of time. The good news is that to prove this income, you can have a co-signer, which must be your spouse or partner, which means that you can combine the 2 incomes in order to meet the requirement.
In general, these are the only relatives who are eligible for sponsorship: spouse or partner, dependent child, parent or grandparent. No other relative is eligible for sponsorship through the standard sponsorship program. However, in very, very rare circumstances, it is possible to sponsor another close relative You may be able to sponsor your sibling, niece, nephew, or grandchild if they meet a very specific set of circumstances. First, the individual in question must be an orphan, meaning that both their parents are no longer alive. They must be a blood relation of yours or related to you through adoption. They must be single, meaning neither married nor in a common law relationship, and they must be under 18 years of age. If they do not meet these criteria, they will not be eligible for sponsorship.
Finally, there is an extremely rare circumstance whereby you're able to sponsor any relative to come to Canada regardless of their age, and this is sometimes known as the Lonely Canadian Program. Essentially, this means that the Canadian citizen or permanent resident is in Canada alone, with no spouse or partner, no children, no siblings, no parents or grandparents here with them in Canada, and in addition to this, has no other living relative who would be eligible for them to sponsor, so they don't have a sibling, niece, nephew or grandchild who's under 18. If this is the case, a person is seen as a lonely person and may be eligible to sponsor a relative from abroad, even if they are over the age of 18.
So as you can see, unless the relative is a spouse, parent, child or grandparent, it's generally not possible to be sponsored to come to Canada. But there are a few loopholes to be able to sponsor other relatives under very specific circumstances. But if your sibling lives in Canada and isn't eligible to sponsor you, it is worth bearing in mind that although they might not be able to directly sponsor you to come and live with them in Canada, having them as a sibling or indeed having any relative in Canada may give you extra points and help you on your way, depending on which immigration pathway you are choosing. A lot of provincial nominee programs award extra points for having a family member in the province, some for having an aunt or an uncle, and one which even gives points for a distant relative. And the federal programs offer an extra 15 CRS points for having a brother or a sister living in Canada. So just having a relative in Canada can also help you enormously.
So there you have it, an overview of all the different ways a relative can be sponsored for Canadian residency. Links for everything we've talked about are in the description box below, and hopefully we've clarified who can and can't be sponsored. Let us know in the comments if you think you may be eligible for this, or indeed, if you've been through the process yourself. Don't forget to subscribe for new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and we'll see you next time.